that as we move through this sermon, because part of this week was spent in a mission and vision workshop where we realized, in fact, that we have real clarity and strength with the basis of our mission statement, but our vision about who we want to be, while vibrant, is in need of revision and articulation to really capture the essence of that which is going to call us and keep calling us into being, even when the clouds obscure the final destination, even when we experience whatever turmoil may come our way. This image of who we want to be, we are in the process of articulating and discovering, and that is an ongoing process for the next several Monday nights. But I want to start off with the title of the sermon today, The Prophetic Yes, and I ended my welcome by saying that the prophet will call us, or something to that effect, and some of you said, we have a prophet? The truth is, we have many prophets. We are a prophetic tradition. This isn't prophecy in the sense of tea leaves. This is prophecy in the sense of speaking truth to power. And this is an old, ancient tradition in one of our primary sources of Judaism. The prophetic tradition has carried us through. In fact, Martin Luther King, of course, was a prophet in this way. And we are each called to be prophets in this way, speaking truth to power. And the prophetic yes, saying yes to your own prophetic vision, your own prophetic activation and call that calls you into the world to speak truth to power. And that could be the power in the State House, and that could be the power in your own personal psychology. That could be speaking truth, for instance, to the power of fear, which I've been riding that horse into the ground recently, but it needs it. The power of fear in our own lives, when we can speak truth to that power, we're called to say yes to that. So last week we did speak a lot about freeing ourselves from fear and what that might look like, and that you can tell when fear is in operation, oftentimes when you're angry, when you're depressed, or when you are in denial or fleeing a situation, because fear inspires fight, flight, or flop. So 20 minutes last Sunday of your life was spent by listening to somebody asking, maybe next time you get angry, to trace that down to the fear. I'm wondering if anybody did it. If anybody did it, I didn't. It's really easy to forget things when you're scared, when you're angry, or in denial. Boy, denial is a tough one. You don't even know you're in denial. That's hard. But it is active, extremely active. So fear is, I guess, a sub-theme to at least my thinking recently, and struggling to find ways to be free of it. Some of you have asked me, you've agreed with my premise, thank you, and then you've asked me, how do we do that? And at this point, I'm not entirely sure. I'm making it up as I go along. Literally right now, I'm making this up as I go along. But that's a project for us and for me as a minister, and that's where this image of who I want to be helps me live into that vision and stumble through, and maybe I'll stumble upon some practices that allow me to be free from fear. But I think identifying it is step number one, right? Fear is in operation throughout so much of our lives, and it is absolutely at the heart of the struggle which called into being the conference that I attended earlier this week. U of A hosted a Black Lives Matter conference. I couldn't remember if it's Black Life Matters or Black Lives. Life Matters conference. And that was, holy cow, talk about a whirlwind. My personal experience there was one of being swept from outrage to love, from guilt and complicity to futility. And it was an incredible conference. I'm struggling with what to make of it and how to leave it, and what to do with what I got from it, because the outrage is so real and so legitimate, right? I mean, that's a terrible word to say right there. But you can see where the outrage comes from, and it is so hot. Even just understanding it gets too hot to be near, much less living it. Okay? And yet, so there's this huge rage, and appropriate rage. And the struggle at the same time, there is so much love. And how to get from outrage to love, and not to get there, you're walking with them both at the same time, is an absolute whirlwind. So one thing I learned is that I don't know. I don't know. I'm at a loss. And some people there offered some guidance, and some people basically said, there are a lot of people were frustrated and would raise their hands and say, well, what can we do? And this would come from many different demographics, including some African Americans who were asking other African Americans what they could do about some very particular oppression. Transgendered women oppressed not only by our larger society, but even within the black culture, so to speak. And people were trying to figure out, what can we do? And sometimes the answer was, what can we do to help? And the answer was, you can't do anything to help. As a matter of fact, one of the answers was, get out of the way. So this is a hard thing to hear, right? Because we recognize our guilt, our complicity in a system of white supremacy that we have inherited for 300 years now. And we want to do something about it to help. We want to outreach. But sometimes outreach is actually just creating more of a kind of oppression. So I'm not an expert on this, but we need to have that in our hearts as well, and make space for that, and know when to work on ourselves and work on our systems, the systems that we participate in all the time, and to change those systems. So that's a difficult thing. Did anybody else go to that, by the way? Peter, I saw some. Ian, can you just, what's one takeaway, Vince, that you came out of it with?
That we need to do a lot of work to acknowledge our white privilege.
Ian was, in fact, a presenter and a poet at the conference, and I was privileged to hear him present, though not poeticize. I look forward to that. What was your feeling coming out of that conference? I mean, I'm sure there are lots of feelings, but if we could have one.
Well, to speak to one of the questions that you just talked about that came up from several demographics, one answer that I'm taking away that one of the presenters said was to work on yourself. You know, a person was like, okay, how can I be an ally to this community? And you know, the presenter said, you know, it's not my job
Right.
to tell you how to be an ally. You get together with other people in your demographic and you figure it out for yourself. It's not my job to educate you on how to support me.
Right. So that's hard. That's a hard thing to hear, but there's a lot of truth in it, and I think we should heed it. Heed it. I just want to talk. Were you there, sir? I didn't.
Yeah, I would ask people here to maybe look at the law enforcement perspective. If you're talking about the Black Lives Matter issue, then I would just ask that everybody look at the law enforcement officer's point of view. And there's a good website called policeone.com, and there's a lot of discussion about how the police are viewed today. And you know, law enforcement's at very, very great peril right now. And I just would like people to look at this issue from our perspective as well.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I mean, the more perspective we can get on everybody's perspective, the better off the conversation is going to be. No less difficult, however. Peter, what was your thing that you took away?
When I saw the documentary film on Ferguson, I just didn't realize everything that was going on there. It was just shocking, actually. And you look at, you know, the both sides, the people who have been facing law enforcement in terms of control over slaves, and fast forward to 2015, we don't have slavery, but we have the leftover. And then you look at it from a societal point of view, you know, control over violence, control over society, and it's an amazing, complex feature of American life.
Yeah. I think one of the bottom lines is the current system is not working. It's not working for African Americans. It's not working for cops. It's not working. So the system needs to be changed, and we are part of that system. So I want to say one of the things that really impacted me was a really brief story told by one of the presenters. I forgot, he may have even been on your panel, Ian. I don't remember. He was from Denver, and he was a gay man, and he was estranged from his father for much of his adult life because of that. And then they came back together towards the end, and he realized that his father loved him deeply, and of course his father realized that too. And I'm simplifying the story here, right? But one of the things that he took out of that was that everything that keeps us from realizing love is bullshit. I can get away with that because I'm quoting him. And the brevity of that statement hit me. Well, it was easier to digest than work on yourself. but it was also just so simple and true, and I got it and could a big yes to that. And that is true of, I was then extrapolating that moment in a way to stand for many of the issues that were presented at the conference, that anything that is keeping us from realizing the love, from realizing our love, is bullshit. Now, some of this some of this is important stuff along the way, the quagmires, the cliffs that keep us, that we have to face on the way to the top of the mountain are important in their moment. But once you have the vista, once you have achieved the vista of love, and you realize that all of that was really in comparison to this experience somewhat arbitrary and manufactured, it's all BS. I don't know how to skip it, but that moment gave to me a message of hope. It's all bullshit. It's a very hopeful thing to say. Let's take a little break and have some music, and I'll collect my thoughts and we'll. Could I get someone from the choir to prop that door open? We can get a cross draft. It's a little warm in here. So, another thing that came out of that conference, right, was that there is, and this is going to sound obvious, right, but there is a huge diversity. Like Black Lives Matter, and it is a huge diversity. And so Black Lives Matter as a movement is actually, the phrase that they were saying is a movement of movements. It's a movement that stretches over many other movements, many other agendas that are now working together. And that actually sounded pretty familiar as a Unitarian Universalist. That we are a faith that embraces this idea of out of many one, right? So we come here and celebrate our diversity, celebrate our individuality, celebrate our freedom, and yet we are within that contained by some, and given form by some broad strokes. Now, that's true for our faith. It's also true for our congregation. And the broad strokes that form our congregation are our covenant, the promises that we make to each other, our covenant, our mission, which currently is to welcome, the preamble at any rate, is to welcome, care for, and inspire, and our vision. So, both our mission and our vision, if you look at the back page of your order of service, actually don't. Beyond welcome, care for, and inspire, who knows what our mission is?
Welcome the stream.
That's our covenant.
Among ourselves and beyond.
There's a bit about within and beyond our walls. Right, so it's kind of long. It's got the preamble and then 3 bullet points. Who can remember anything about our vision? Right. Me neither. I mean, so.
Blurry.
What's that?
Blurry.
Blurry. Yeah, it's vague. So what our vision is blurry. That just hit me. Thank you. So we had the opportunity to participate in a mission and vision workshop to develop new ones, or at least refine the ones we had. And over the course of 2 days, 19 to 20 people showed up to that, which was totally more than any other UU congregation in Tucson, so we win. I'm not competitive. Just an observation. But so I really that was powerful, really, to have so many of this congregation show up on behalf of this congregation to think about these things was amazing. It was a lot of fun while we were there, and one of the really great things that we discovered was we like our mission. We like especially the preamble of our mission, to welcome, care for, and inspire. We decided maybe we might, tweak it and shape it a little bit, maybe change a word or two, but basically keep it to welcome, care for, and inspire those within and beyond our walls. In some iteration like that, boom, that's your mission statement. I mean, I'm not saying that is your mission statement, but that would be, for instance, a mission statement. You could remember that, and it is powerful. We can go deep with welcome. We can go deep with care for, and we can go deep with inspire. And we can go far outside of our walls, and we can go well inside of ourselves with those. The vision, we decided, was a little foggy. So we're going to spend some time, and not this Monday, not tomorrow, but the subsequent Mondays following. You're all invited to come and work on what we want to be 5 years, 10 years from now. And this gets into legacy, which ties us, by the way, in some ways back into some themes running through tomorrow's holiday, right? Because vision is in many ways about legacy. You are thinking about what you want to leave when you are not here. Dr. King never got to the mountaintop. Moses never got to the promised land. But they left a legacy for the people that were working with them. They left a legacy for all of us to walk in. So we're going to be doing some legacy work. Some work that is not only a legacy, but functions as that image of who we want to be that will call to us as a congregation, and maybe even as people. If you want to be a part of a congregation that says for its mission, for instance, that it wants to operate on wind turbines, right? And just pulling stuff out of the air. Get it? This is what happens when I don't write. Bad joke Sunday. So if that's going to be one of the things that we want for ourselves 5 years from now, 10 years from now, is to have a church powered on wind, that's not only going to affect us as a group of people working together for that, that should affect us in some ways as individuals. That should serve to orient us to something that is in line with the production of power from wind, right? So that is just an example. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be environmental. But our vision as a congregation will shape our work as a congregation. It will shape my work as your minister, and it will shape your work as a person. And that's exciting and important. And you are invited to help create it in the few Mondays that we've got ahead of us here. I just want to make sure that I haven't left anything on the table that is important. Incidentally, some of the words that were kicked around, I just want to throw them out to you. Beacon, magnet, learning center, justice, spiritual center. Anybody, who all was there? Just another show of hands. Okay, I'm not going to go around and get opinions from all of you, but that was a lot of folks. Actually, everyone who was there, say a word from the from the vision part. Just shout it out that pops into your mind. When I say vision and about yesterday, I want you all to say the word that pops into your mind from that. Just shout it loudly. Okay?
Justice word.
Culture of abundance.
Okay, so that's a little taste. There'll be less shouting on Mondays, but... So I invite you to come on Monday to work on our mission. More importantly, more crucially at this point, to work on our vision, which is there before us for us to create this congregation and to have influence thereby on our own being and our own relationships, personal and as we are altogether. With that, I will mercifully turn you over into the hands of people who will be reading music.